This is a collaboration video featuring A Clock Strikes 3. Please check the links in the video description for links to her channel and to her work on Reddit. Alright, on with the show. I should have read the reviews. My girlfriend moved out 3 weeks ago. My cat, Ruck, was really close to her. And now that she's gone, I can tell he's a bit lonely, especially when I'm out at work. I came home a few times to my curtains ripped up or all the toilet paper in shreds. The last straw was when I came home after working late to find that he'd clawed a hole the size of a dinner plate into the side of the sofa. I decided I had to do something. I tried different toys, even catnip, but nothing worked. One night while browsing Amazon, I found a pet camera. It's a tiny camera that records your pet on a live feed, so you can monitor their behaviour while you're away. It even has an audio function so you can talk to them. Sounded silly, but hey, I love my furry dude, so I bought it. I got overnight shipping and installed it immediately. I decided to set it up in my bedroom, as that was where Ruck dwelled most. My first day at work, I think I checked that camera 30 times. When I spoke into the microphone, Ruck seemed to be happier, and I noticed there was no destruction around the house either. By day 4, I figured I'd solved the problem with Ruck. That leads me to right now. About 30 minutes ago, I climbed in bed with Ruck, ready to close my eyes, when my phone buzzed. A notification from the pet cam. I almost ignored it, sure I'd just triggered the thing. But I opened it anyway. What I saw made my grip tighten on the phone. Instead of a video of myself in bed, I saw a man. Tall, gangly, with pale skin and large eyes. He was moving into my room with exaggerated steps, like a sneaking cartoon character. He got right up to the lens, so close I could almost smell his rotten breath. And he smiled. I immediately paused the video, terrified. I looked at the spot where the man should have been standing, but there was no one there. I went onto Amazon and found the pet cam. I had a look through the reviews, hoping for some weird glitch. It had to be a joke, right? The first dozen reviews were pretty standard, but it was the last that caused me to bolt upright. The customer complained that the camera was on a time delay, sometimes as much as 15 minutes. I went back to the video and pressed play with shaky fingers. I watched in horror as the man slithered under my bed, giving the camera a wink before disappearing into the darkness. And then I saw myself enter the room and climb in bed before the video ended. Now I'm sitting in my bed, knowing he's under it. I could call the police, but I doubt I'd have time. So please, do yourselves a favour and read the reviews.
Necro mutation. Will it hurt? I remember asking. That's the only thing I wanted to know. Excruciating pain, he said, his hoarse voice barely audible. So much pain. He handed me the vial. It looked so innocent. A silvery liquid. That's not how I imagined poison would look like. It should be dark, putrid and repugnant. A drop is enough, he whispered. But for torment extraordinaire, I suggest using it all. I listened to him absent-mindedly as he explained the intricate nuances of the potion, my mind wandering restlessly, hate and despair the dominant emotions, the only emotions. When he finished his lengthy explanation, I nodded weakly and handed him the envelope. Transaction complete. I hurried out of the alley, the foul stench of the horrid cloaked figure following inexplicably into my car. This was it. My ticket to freedom. Late as always, you ugly hag, Rob said as I entered, a horrid smirk on his wrinkled face. Sorry, I mumbled, stomping to the kitchen. I'm hungry, he snarled. Get a fucking move on. I made something simple. Something with a lot of flavor to mask the taste of the poison. A casserole seemed the obvious choice. Just a drop. Careful, careful, careful. Oh no. There went the whole vial. Such a klutz. Dinner time. About fucking time, Rob said, a spoonful in his mouth before I'd even set his plate down. A minute later, and it was empty. Tasted like fucking shit, he grimaced. What did you put in this thing? I felt a bitter taste in the back of my mouth, adrenaline pumping through my system, my heart beating in a frenzied pace. Enough to kill you, I replied. He coughed. What the fuck did you do? I killed you, I murmured painfully. But something felt wrong. The room was spinning, colors flashing in violent intervals. A pain in my chest like I'd never thought possible, like someone grabbing my heart with their bare hands, squeezing the blood out of it, sharp fingernails digging into the muscles and tissue, ripping it into unrecognizable pieces of raw, dripping flesh. Then darkness, nothingness, death. Ah! I screamed as I woke up, but there was no sound. Just an empty echo inside my head. The torment was unbearable, undescribable, every single pain receptor firing at once. What did he tell me? What did he tell me back there in that alley? The poison will kill you instantly. But the beauty of this isn't death, it's the undeath. Necro mutation. It will redirect all energy in your body to stop your brain decomposing. Keeps the brain alive for months after death. Imagine that. Imagine the torment. Laying paralyzed in your coffin, feeling your body decomposing around you. Months of constant, unrelenting consciousness. True torture. True beauty. No. You did this, Rob's voice echoed in my mind, and now you're trapped here with me. No. Months together in this tiny coffin. No. I'll make sure you feel every second of it. No!
CPS J47. The nation was gripped by euphoria. Children and elderly danced alike in the streets with joy. A cure had been discovered for the deadly pandemic that had swept the land. CPS J47, as it was known, had been proven to not only cure and prevent the recurrence of COVID-19 in 100% of trial cases. There was strong evidence that it also eliminated depression, heart disease, you name it. A true miracle. Of course, the government began the rollout by initially offering the cure only to those with flu-like symptoms. An enormous treatment centre had been constructed where an abandoned coal mine had previously been situated. As someone with a high temperature and persistent cough, the soldiers out the front of the facility guided me inside, along with thousands of others. It was organised impressively. We each had a colour sticker placed on our shirts upon entry, and were directed to separate wings of the facility based on this colour. The entire structure was divided into narrow walkways, leading to each of the dozens of treatment areas. The brand new walls of this immaculate building were painted a beautiful burgundy tone. There was a heavy military presence there to ensure orderly behaviour, but that seemed unnecessary right now. Everyone was on their best behaviour, simply grateful that a free cure was being offered for them and their families. As I queued up patiently in my lane, single file, an ear-piercing alarm went off. I could hear the sound of every external door clunking shut. This was the moment that the soldiers raised their automatic rifles and commenced firing at us. Most people screamed and tucked themselves into the fetal position, a vain attempt to make themselves a smaller target. Some of the more courageous individuals threw themselves in front of their children or loved ones. It was all pointless. Playing dead was no use either. The soldiers marched through the chaos, pumping an extra 2 rounds into every body in the building, whether they were moving or not. The burgundy walls scarcely changed colour throughout this horrific exchange. CPS J47 was a reference to the copper-plated steel jacket ammunition used by the AK-47 rifle. This is how North Korea became the first nation to successfully eradicate COVID-19. Someone broke into our home. It was every family's nightmare. My wife and I had the day off work, and we had just taken our son out for lunch and some family bonding time. But as we approached our home, something felt off. I had a growing sense of dread the closer we got. As our house came into view, I could see that the front door was wide open. Someone had broken into our home. I told my family to wait outside, in case the intruder was still inside. They obliged, and I slowly and silently made my way through our house. As I stepped into the living room, I saw broken furniture. Nothing in its correct place. Just utter chaos. Was this person looking for something? Did they have malicious intent? Why our home? Why us? Next, I walked over to our kitchen. The fridge had been emptied. Dishes and food were thrown all over the room. What kind of person had broken into our home? A homeless person who just needed food? If so, why did they destroy the living room? And that's when I heard it. Footsteps in the bedroom. The intruder was still in our house. I took a brief moment to be grateful that I had asked my wife and son to wait outside. It was impossible to decipher the person's motives so far. But I was about to come face to face with the person that forcefully entered our home, and I would demand answers. I crept toward the bedroom, slowly. I approached the door and focused on the sliver of light slipping through the crack. I could see faint shadows dancing in the light. I raised my hand, placed it against the door, and took a deep breath, readying myself for whatever may be on the other side. I pushed the door open and stepped through the threshold with authority. I couldn't believe my eyes. I actually rubbed my hands over them, thinking I was imagining things. There, in my son's bed, was a young girl with curly blonde hair. She stared at me with wide eyes. She must have been terrified. I must have been a few feet taller than her, and at least 100 pounds heavier. I must have been a sight to see for that little girl. But she should have considered that before breaking into my home. I called my wife and son to see what I found. "Is that a human, Papa?" "Why, yes it is, baby bear. That's dinner."
In event of nuclear disaster. With each passing day, it was becoming more obvious that the war would not have a peaceful end. All over America, people received a letter from their government. It contained a simple pamphlet with a short set of instructions and pictures. In event of nuclear disaster, the looming threat from the Eastern Bloc is growing. In order to save yourself and your family, it is of the utmost importance that you act now. Build a fallout shelter. Dig a hole in your garden. Make it 8 by 4 by 6 feet at least. See pictures. If you do not own a garden, find a suitable spot somewhere else, even if it is on someone else's land. The law has been changed to allow people to build a shelter each. In case of a nuclear threat, you are to bring your family into the hole and cover it with a door. Make sure the door has weights fastened to it. See pictures. If you hear a detonation, wait approximately 2 hours before you leave the shelter, to be sure that there are not more bombs coming. Good luck. The following days, people busied themselves with following the instructions. It was a very strange sight. The whole of Central Park, New York, was filled with these makeshift shelters. Driving down a street, you could see one by every house. And when the alarms sounded, people scrambled into them. Those who had not built a shelter of their own forced their way into others. In hindsight, it is impossible to know how many believed that the shelters would save them, and how many realized that they had simply been asked to dig their own graves. Wars are expensive, and every penny counts. The ledge. "You don't want to do this," I yelled as I leaned out of the office window. But the man remained where he stood on the building's ledge, the tips of his shoes peering over the concrete. He gazed down numbly at the throng of spectators congregating on the ground below. Many were filming him. "You don't understand," he replied sadly. "It's over. She's left me." He was close enough to be within my grasp. I slowly reached toward him, thinking he was too immersed in his anguish to notice me. I was wrong. "Stop that!" he shouted, and shakily inched further away from me. I shrank back. Already the crowd had swollen in number. Many more had gathered to watch the gruesome end of an unraveled man. I knew it would be just a matter of time before the cops arrived. I prayed they'd be accompanied by a negotiator far more trained than myself. "Listen, man," I pleaded. "I know we've never met before. I'm just the night janitor who went to clean your office and saw the window open. But I can tell from the framed photo on your desk that you've got people you love. Are those 2 girls your daughters?" He nodded. "How do you think they'll feel when you never come home from work?" I spoke every word in a calm, even tone, though inwardly I was panicking. Don't you think doing this would hurt them for the rest of their lives? The man began to cry. Look, I get it, I continued, never taking my eyes off him. I'm divorced myself. It's hard, but it doesn't have to be the end of the world. Your kids still need you here. I reached out for him again. This time, he didn't back away. Come on, I said encouragingly. I won't let you fall. He hesitated, then slowly began inching closer to the window. I was so absorbed in the moment that I never even heard the office door open. Just as his fingertips grazed against mine, I felt someone place a hand on my shoulder and roughly pull me away. Startled, the man on the ledge lost his balance. No! I yelled, but it was too late. He'd already begun to fall. His terrified scream meshed with those of the horrified onlookers. I'll never forget the pulpy sound of his body hitting the ground. I turned around and locked eyes with a cop. Tears streamed down my face. Why did you do that? I demanded, my voice trembling with grief and rage. I had him. He shook his head solemnly. No, you didn't. Last night he climbed onto the ledge of another building and threatened to jump. A man fell to his death trying to save him. An unsettling sense of confusion washed over me. I don't understand. You weren't going to pull him back inside through the window, the cop replied gravely. He was going to pull you out of it.
chooseyourdeath@gmail.com. There's an email address that lets you decide how you want to die. Nobody knows how it works. Nobody knows why it's there. But it's there. It works simply. All you have to do is send how you wish to die, and your wish will be granted within 5 days. You don't need to be specific. You don't need to put in anything extra. You don't even need to put in your info. They just know. And once you send it, there's no turning back. Did you wish to die from a stabbing? Did you wish to die a hero? Did you wish to die from something inappropriate? Your wish will be granted. People die in their own beds from a hooded figure stabbing them to death. People die saving others from fires. People die doing something inappropriate. People die. I want to die too. I desperately want it to end. Life is impossible for me to continue to go through, and I don't want to live it anymore. But I'm too much of a coward for suicide. So I went for the better option. I didn't want to die painfully, and I didn't want anyone to mourn over my death. All I wanted was to leave this world peacefully and let everyone else who used to be in my life live their own wondrous lives. So, I raised my fingers over the keyboard and I typed, I want to die painlessly and not have anyone weep over my death. 1 day passed and I was still alive. 2 days passed and I was still alive. 3 days passed and I was still alive. 4 days passed and I was still alive. The 5th day was the day of the party. I came over to my brother's house, along with most of my family. Today was the day of his party. Everyone else was singing and laughing, and yet I was sitting in the corner, on my phone. I should have known it was a scam. I should have known it was fake. I just wanted to die painlessly, not have anyone suffer over me. So why wouldn't it happen? Why wouldn't I die? Then, I got the notification, and I went pale, realizing my wish came true. You don't need to put any info in your email. You don't need to put any extra details in your email. And you don't need to be specific in your email. But God, I wish I was more specific. I looked up at my family, enjoying themselves and completely unaware of what was about to hit them, as the words burned into my mind. Emergency alert. Ballistic missile threat inbound. Seek shelter immediately. This is not a drill.
House sitting. My eyes flew open when a hand clamped over my mouth. "Don't move," the man leaning over me commanded. A knife glimmered in the darkness. A surge of fear jolted through me. Without thinking, I thrust my hands upwards into his face and felt my palm meet his nose with a revolting crunch. When he howled in pain, I hurled myself out of bed and dove into the adjoining bathroom. I slammed the door shut and turned its lock only seconds before he smashed into it. "Get out of there," he shouted. Heavy battering thuds shook the door. "Take whatever you want and go," I yelled back. "I won't call the police, I swear." He fell silent. I held my breath anxiously. For a fleeting moment, I thought he was gone, only for my stomach to drop when I heard the sound of the knife's blade gouging into wood. I realized with horror that he was trying to carve his way through to me. "Please stop," I whimpered. "This isn't even my house. The Day family hired me to stay here while they're on vacation." Suddenly, I was struck by the strong scent of rubbing alcohol. I looked down to see clear liquid spreading beneath the door and across the bathroom tiles. "You have 10 seconds to come out," the man said threateningly, "or I light a match." A dizzying wave of terror washed over me. I gripped the sink to keep from falling. 10, he barked. 9. My eyes frantically searched the room for anything to defend myself with. 8. 7. 6. I felt as if I were being torn in half by an excruciating decision. Accept whatever violent fate awaited me outside the door, or perish in a fiery blaze. 5. 4. 3. I flung open the door. The man raised his knife, and I emptied the contents of a hairspray canister into his eyes. He screamed in agony as I pushed past him and ran. I made it to the staircase before he grabbed me by the hair and threw me to the ground. His poisoned eyes were a furious shade of inflamed red. "I'll kill you!" the man roared. He lifted a foot to stomp on my head, but his polluted vision slowed him and gave me enough time to deliver a swift kick to his knee. He lost his balance and stumbled backwards. By the time he realized he was falling, it was already too late. He plummeted down the stairs and landed in a bloodied, broken heap. As I approached the man's crumpled body, I noticed a small blinking light fastened to his chest. Confusion dawned on me when I realized he was wearing a camera. I nearly jumped when his phone began vibrating in his pocket. Unknown number. I answered it silently. A hideous sense of shock overtook me when a familiar voice spoke into my ear. "Is he dead yet?" Mr. Day asked excitedly. "I can't wait to see the footage." This is just a nightmare. That thing, whatever the fuck it is, hasn't stopped chasing us all this time. This time? How long has it been exactly? I looked down, my clothes torn, my shoes missing, feet bleeding out. We might have been running for days. We run on, its blinding white eyes projecting our shadows ahead of us. I turn to him. He's no better, at least physically speaking. His eyes are tired, but his pace remains consistent. The woods stretch out indefinitely. Are they even woods? I was certain we had been running through trees, yet now they seem more like great tendrils stretching up into the ether. I try as hard as I can to remember how we arrived here, but even that becomes a challenge. I think that's when I realize, "Hey," I call out, even though we were mere feet apart. "Now's not really the time." He has a point. I persist. "I've had an idea." "What?" "Try and remember how we got here." We run in silence for a moment. I don't know what... I can't remember. He sounds almost like he finds the fact amusing. It is, in a way. What if none of this is real? It sounds beyond stupid saying it out loud. But he pauses. Fuck, what if... I think you might be right. Now I'm doubting the theory myself, but it only makes sense. He pulls out the gun that I now remember we've had with us this entire time. How do we know which of us is dreaming? I stare at him, then my own hands. I sure as hell feel real. Do you feel real? Of course I do, and I'm willing to bet you do too. Oh, Jesus Christ, Shoot me in the foot. I say it without really thinking it through. If I'm dreaming, then surely the sensation will be enough to wake me up. I suppose that makes sense. He does as he's told. The pain is indescribable. Then, nothing. I take the gun. Wait. He looks at the ground, conflicted, then back to me. Go for the head. What the fuck are you... I'm serious. You have to trust me. Think about it. If I'm dreaming, I'll wake up and none of this is real. If you're dreaming, then you haven't killed anyone. My hands shake. The monster comes closer. I can hear its fierce drone and a sharp cry, like that of a banshee. I open fire. The monster stops. The woods around us dim as it closes its eyes. I keep my eyes firmly on the body all the while. Keep your hands in the air. We have you surrounded, you son of a bitch. I do as they say, eyes on the body. Don't worry, officer. None of this is real. Trembling, I bring the gun to my head. They all tense, giving shouts of defiance, commanding me to stop. None of it matters, though. This is just a nightmare.
Never have I ever. Every year my parents send me to summer camp. And to show how little they care about me, they send me despite the fact that kids go missing every year without fail. I hate coming here. I'm always the outcast, always alone, whilst everyone else is partying like wild, horny teens. However, I do have an ace up my sleeve. Something that gets everyone talking to me. There's a farm just outside the camp. A real backwoods place. The kind where everyone has 12 fingers, drinks strychnine and handles snakes as part of some bizarre ritual. Anyway, they may be inbred hicks, but they make damn good moonshine. Every year, I sneak onto that farm and bring back a bottle for everyone to enjoy. It's a real icebreaker. Robbing these hicks is easy. They may be intimidating and I'm sure they're violent, but they're dumb as hell. I always slip in and out completely undetected. One of the few perks of being unnoticeable. Back at camp, the others were playing Never Have I Ever. They had no alcohol and were playing the 10 fingers version instead. I approached them and I said, "Not much of a game without booze, is it?" There was silence as they looked at me like I'd pissed on their shoes. "What do you want?" said a boy. "Yeah, get lost," said a girl. I smiled and answered, "I just want to make this game more fun." Their eyes lit up as I revealed the moonshine. "Wow, where'd you score that?" said the girl, who just a second ago told me to get lost. "I jacked it from the farm near here," I answered, trying to sound cool. So, if you want me to make this game more fun, I said, you're gonna have to invite me to play. Oh, and I get the first go. There was another pause. They muttered amongst themselves. And finally, they agreed. With that, I poured them all a cup of moonshine, before pouring myself a cup and joining the circle. The game then restarted. I took the first go by saying, "Never have I ever had sex." As expected, everyone except me drank from their cup. I figured a couple might be lying, but it wasn't a stretch to believe I was the only virgin in the group. They all began laughing, from a combination of spite and the shot of alcohol they just took. "What a loser," one boy said. "Yeah, who'd have sex with him?" said a girl. A round later, it was my go again. "Never have I ever smoked," I said. Again, everyone except me drank. And again, everyone laughed and called me a loser. Another round later, and it was my go again. Everyone had taken shot after shot, and I hadn't had a single drop. I knew this go. I had to show them I'm the coolest, baddest kid here. So with that, I took my go and I said, "Never have I ever been poisoned."